Welcome to call the regular meeting of the Nevada City Council to order. Today's Thursday, July 25th, 24. It's 5:30 p.m. We have two closed session items. We will have the city attorney announce the closed session items, take any public comment on the item, and then we will recess to closed session.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Item number A, conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, significant exposure to litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9D2. On or about March 7th, 2024, the offices of the city manager and city attorney received significant and deemed credible exposure to litigation titled Amy Freeman versus Nevada City. That concludes that report out. Item B is public employee performance evaluation pursuant to Government Code 54957B1, title city manager. Thank you, sir.
All right. We will adjourn to closed session. We're going to call to order tonight's council meeting on Thursday, July 25th, 2024 at 6:30 p.m. We are returning from open session.
Closed session.
Closed session. We're going to start with the Nisenan tribe recognition. Doug, would you please read that?
I'd love to. We acknowledge that the Nisenan people are still here among us today, though nearly invisible. We understand that we are a Nisenan land that was never ceded, and the original tribal families have yet to recover from the near genocide of their people. As a resident or visitor in the Nisenan land, we support the Nevada City Rancheria Nisenan tribe in efforts to stabilize their people, as well as their campaign to restore federal recognition.
Thank you, Councilmember. So Councilmember Klein, if you would lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Vice.
Vice Mayor, I get it, I promise.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Vice Mayor.
You're welcome, Mr. Mayor.
So let's see, Dean, City Attorney, if you would please report out on the closed session items.
Before roll call, Mr. Mayor?
Before roll call, let's do roll call first. It's only my second meeting. I'll be perfect by the time not to do it anymore. So, Gabby, if you would call the roll, please. Councilmember Fernandez will not be with us tonight, and she has let us know that. So,
Okay. Councilmember Fleming.
Here.
Councilmember CC.
Here.
Vice Mayor Klein.
Here.
And Mayor Peterson.
here.
4 members present.
Now, if our City Attorney, Dean Pucci, would you would please report out from closed session.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As to item B, there's no reportable action. As to item A, in the matter of Amy Freeman versus the City of Nevada City, the council has approved a settlement agreement in the amount of $125,000. The agreement was approved 4-0, and there are no other substantive terms of the agreement to report out. That concludes the report.
Thank you. So adoption of the agenda. Now it's the time for any agenda modifications. Any changes to the agenda, pull consent items, or do we have any recusals to announce? I understand there will be a comment on a consent item. All right. So very good. And we have no presentations tonight. We will begin the meeting with public comment. Government Code 5954.3 provides any member of the public may address the city council on any matter not on the agenda that is within the subject matter jurisdiction of the city. The Brown Act, with limited exceptions, does not allow this council or staff to discuss issues brought forth under public comment. The council cannot take action on non-agenda items. Concerns may be referred to staff or placed on a future agenda. Please note that comments from the public will also be taken on the consent calendar and each item as it is heard. As a reminder, you must adhere to the rules of decorum established for the meeting as posted on the walls and available at the podium. I think we'll leave it at that. The rest is optional. Thank you. Public comment is now open. Please come to the podium if you are interested.
Hi, my name is Liz, and I'm a Nevada County resident. Today, I want to share the story of a young man named Mohammed Bar. Mohammed was a 24-year-old, mostly nonverbal man from Gaza with Down syndrome and autism, with the mental capacity of about a 1 to 2-year-old. He was often bullied and sometimes even hit at school for his disabilities, but when he came home, he was met with love and comfort from his family. That's where he was safe. He could not do most things without his mother's help, eating, drinking. She even changed his diapers. Towards the end of June, fighting around their home intensified, and they were under siege for 7 days, surrounded by tanks, explosions, and gunfire. Mohammed often panicked during that time, and his mother tried her best to comfort him. On July 3rd, the IDF raided their home. There were several dozen soldiers with combat dogs. They broke in, smashed everything, and set the dogs loose. Mohammed's mother told the soldiers, "He's disabled. Please have mercy on him. Please keep that dog away from him." The soldiers didn't care. They allowed their dog to maul Mohammed, biting his chest and hands. Mohammed quietly repeated the word no as the dog continued to attack him, ripping at his shoulder and tearing his flesh. He began to bleed profusely, but even so, he just started patting the dog's head, saying, "Enough, my dear, enough," believing that the dog was trying to play with him. Soldiers wouldn't allow his family members to help him. They took Mohammed into another room and locked the door. They pointed guns in the family's faces, told them to be quiet, and promised that they would bring in a military doctor to treat Mohammed. After several hours, the family was ordered at gunpoint to leave their home, and they weren't allowed to bring Mohammed with them. When they were able to return a week later, they found Mohammed's body decomposing, covered in blood, his face full of maggots. He died alone on the floor. I shared his story because I need you to understand that his story is not unique. This is one example out of thousands. This is how the IDF treats Palestinians most vulnerable. I cannot imagine the confusion, pain, and terror he felt in his last moments, completely defenseless and alone, this young man whose mind was out of a baby's. Or the grief of his mother, who had loved and cared for him his entire life, forced to leave him and then to find him in that condition. I really am asking for the bare minimum by requesting a ceasefire resolution during a genocide. The rest of the world sees it, and history will study it. The ICJ ruled last week that Israel illegally occupies Palestinian territories, specifically East Jerusalem, the West Bank, and Gaza. It was determined that Israel is in breach of international law and violates Palestinians' right to self-determination. Israel was told to withdraw from these territories immediately, and Israel's presence is accompanied by a regime of racial segregation and apartheid. States have been called upon to enforce sanctions and to stop all aid. No assistance, no money, no arms, no trade, no nothing. No actions of any kind to support Israel's illegal occupation, and this is just the beginning. You have a rare opportunity right now because years from now, you're going to know what you did during the genocide in Gaza. And I hope you can look back and feel good knowing that you did at least the bare minimum. So please put a ceasefire resolution on the agenda.
Thank you, Liz. Good afternoon, Eric.
Hi, guys. So I spent a lot of time thinking about what it means to live in a country that is currently complicit in genocide, while so many of our citizens are actively in support, and the rest are either resigned to the fact that it's inevitable or completely tuned out. So how do we pull ourselves out of this death spiral? Hanlon's razor is a useful tool in this, which is never attribute to malice that which can be adequately explained by stupidity. It is much easier for me to imagine that most people are ignorant rather than evil. So, you know, on that vein, you know, I think, you know, we first must realize that the divisions and justifications that the states use to commit these atrocities are invented and can be ignored. They're not real. A great example of this is the genocide of 1994 in Rwanda, where the Hutus murdered 1 million people, mostly Tutsis and people who resisted the slaughter. Right now in Rwanda, there are no Hutus and there are no Tutsis. That doesn't exist anymore. It was a fabricated distinction. Like all distinctions, like all states, all these atrocities that are being made in the name of Hamas, in the name of Israel, in the name of America, these things are fabrications, they're not real, and we do not need to recognize them. In fact, we have to actively ignore them. And that applies to our local governance as well. So, you know, if we want to continue as the status quo, we can, but it's not working for anyone, and it's gonna end really bad. So, you know, I encourage you to just think differently. You know, I know a lot of you have a lot invested in the game we've all been playing. You know, you got your mortgages, you're pretty far on the Monopoly board, but the board is getting flipped, and like it's not working for most of us. Most of us never had a chance to play fairly on this game, and this game is over. Like it has to be. So it's not working anymore, and I really I encourage you to use the bit of say you have in this game that you've been playing for so long to make real gains in what really matters. People matter. Your mortgage doesn't fucking matter. You know, the environment matters. So use the little bit of time we have left to do something that matters before somebody flips the board, because it's happening in front of our eyes, and we are all blindly just marching along and pretending that these distinctions between us are real, because they're not. You know, the damage is real. The damage that race and religion and all the divisions that are caused by gender, and the damages are real, but the distinctions are not. We are all just people. So act like it, please. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Good evening, Matthew.
Matthew Golder, Grass Valley. Good to see you all. I've been trying to get here for months and months. Being that our meetings are basically restricted to the public. You have to be here in person or you have to email. We all know connectivity in our county is very lacking. I was in the planning commission for the county today. They were looking at like this multi-million-dollar complex to be party center to be built in the South County, yet you couldn't comment on it unless you were there. So locking the people out doesn't help. What it does is create an empty room and people that come for one topic. We have more topics to deal with. Tonight, I'd like to mention that Nevada City really needs to get a grip on their trees, get a tree code in place to rescue the trees that are historic. And you could start with ones over 100 years old, work your way down. Any variances that you could put in place to save some of these trees, because it seems like people are cutting out the ones that are easy to access, historic, and they drop more leaves than others, so yes, they take a little more maintenance. So putting in the parking lot trees or the shopping mall trees in places that never get watered, will never develop into a tree even big enough to put a bird nest in, is really sad to see that direction that the city's taken. I'm going to agree with the other folks, and since I'm going to speak on multiple life forms tonight, you know, human life forms are important too. I'm going to speak on smaller ones when we get to the bridge situation. The speeds that people are traveling through town are definitely scary. I understand you've got a grant to do something about out front here. And as a pedestrian, full-time pedestrian, ride my bike, it's out front now, walk, rode the bus here to speak on this particular subject tonight. And it has to be dealt with because you're going to have some squished people, and we hope it's not children. Maybe it'll be somebody old, and they were going to die in a few years anyway. But still, it's tragic, and it shouldn't happen in front of City Hall, which is where it's going to happen. False police reports. Somewhat related to the bridge, but not, is false police reports. 3 separate false police reports that the bridge folks working down there called the police. The chief came down and talked to me last time about it. And this is for me filming in public, standing on the sidewalk, filming them pumping just complete garbage down Deer Creek. They know they're not supposed to do it. They know, but when the camera comes out, they change their attitude and they don't like it. They don't like to be seen. They're not used to being seen. Most of the projects that these companies do are not open to the public like this one, where you can basically see it from all sides almost. There's a lot of violations going on down there, but I'll talk on that when we get to the bridge report. But I'm more concerned about the company itself and not really respecting the town, not respecting the people, not respecting the fact that they've got a wonderful project. Thank you.
Thank you, Matthew. Any further public comment? If not, I will bring public comment to a close. Thank you. We will move to the consent agenda, which comprised of 5 items. I think we'll seek approval first and then comment after, if that's acceptable.
That is fine with me.
All right.
Probably comment from Councilmember Cece and public comment before approval.
Yeah, probably. Okay.
Okay.
Always a little guidance there. So any public comment on the consent agenda? All right. Councilmember Cece.
I do have a comment on consent agenda number 3, which is the Office of Emergency Services Wildfire Prevention and Mitigation Activities Report, which we heard in the Fire Safety Advisory Committee meeting last week, and a very good job was done. Among the things that was covered was the clearing of various homeless camps around town. And you may have noticed in the news today that the governor is allowing cities to clear homeless camps. So I would like the council to agendize an item in which we can discuss a couple of issues around that. One is, under what ordinance do we proceed when we clear a homeless camp? 2, how much warning do the homeless campers get to get their stuff out? 3, what happens to their stuff? And 4, what alternatives for shelter do we give them when we clear them out? I think those are sufficiently interesting topics that the public would like to hear about them, and I would like to hear them discussed by the council.
Thank you. I certainly would support an agenda item that would bring that back as a council.
Sure.
August 14th.
All right.
Thank you very much.
And thank you for your comment, and I believe that that conversation is warranted, particularly after you mentioned with the Fire Safety Advisory Committee, the extent of what we saw was really quite remarkable.
Yes.
So, yeah, we need to understand what's happening there, so thank you. All right, I will look for a motion to approve the consent agenda, unless there was a comment.
I move we approve the consent agenda.
I'll second that.
Okay, approval by Vice Mayor Klein and second by Councilmember Fleming. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? No. Consent agenda passes. We will now move to business items, and we will move to item 1, consideration of the new appointment of Ann Shisco, is that right? Mm-hmm. And the reappointment of Amy Cobden, Rod Brown, and Thomas Nye as Nevada City Planning Commissioners, and recognition of the contributions of planning commissioners past and present for their services to the community. I turn it over to our planner, Lisa. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Peterson. Good evening, members of the council. The item before you tonight is to reappoint our existing planning commissioners and, as you said, appoint our new planning commissioner, Ann Shisco. So Adam Klein's appointed planning commissioner, Wendy Ermshar, resigned in July, as we all know. I'm very sad to see her go. She was going to be here tonight, but I don't see her in the audience. And so a notice of vacancy was adopted by the city council and posted on the city's website and at City Hall. Councilmember Klein has appointed Ann Shisco with a term ending concurrent with the vice mayor's ending June 30th, 2026. As far as the reappointment of the existing commissioners for Amy Cobden, Rodney Brown, and Thomas Nye, their terms follow each of your terms. So since the few of you were reelected this year, we'd like to just reappoint them. So I'd like to bring them up, introduce Ann. Welcome to the commission.
Thank you.
This is Thomas Nye as well, if you could please join us, and Peter Van Zandt.
The man who got left out of the staff report.
Yes, so Peter's term, or Lou's term is until 2026, so he doesn't need reappointment until then. I just wanted to thank you all for your dedication to the city, doing the important work of the commission. The way that our codes are written, the planning commission has a lot of discretion, and I appreciate your commitment to looking into the details and your diligent review of our discretionary projects. I look forward to yours. I do have a lot of gratitude for the cohesive group that you are, and you all operate with respect for each other, and I think that is really, really great for the city. You also have unwavering dedication to the city and the work of the commission, so thank you all for being here.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you.
Does Ann still have a ceremony to undergo?
That was
Oh, is that it?
That was it.
She gets sworn in?
At the meeting.
Meeting, so the
August 15th.
the swearing in will take place at the planning commission meeting. Any public comment on this item? Bring it back to the council for comments.
I'd just like to commend Commissioner Rod Brown, who's not here today. He's on a well-deserved vacation. I watched him on the TV, and I appreciate his dedication and attention to detail, along with the rest of you and the future rest of you. I'm having lunch with him when he gets back from vacation, but I just have appreciated his diligence and all of your diligence, because the work that you guys do, I think, is harder than the work we do. I really do. I think the attention to detail that you have to pay, the attention to detail that you have to pay is a lot harder than what we do, and I appreciate it. I watch your meetings, and I'm just amazed at how how precise a lot of the work that you do is, and how the experience of the people who come before the commission now is a lot better than, I think this is probably the best, commission that I've seen in many years. And it really means a lot to the community, and it means a lot to the people who come before the commission. And so I thank you all for that. And I thank Rod specifically because he's the guy I appointed. So. Thank you, guys.
I wanted to thank Wendy Ermshar for her years of service on the Planning Commission. She was excellent, and as Lisa said, we'll miss her. And also thank Ann Shisco for being willing to take this on. She's extremely sharp, and I know she'll do a great job.
I'd like to welcome Ms. Shisco to the commission. And I also like to thank my commissioner, Peter, who showed up even though he's not going to get mentioned because he's a continuing member. Thank you.
Thank you. And certainly, Mr. Nye, my good friend and the Planning Commission Chair. And I said something about this last week, but it's our Planning Commission is no longer synonymous with dysfunction. It is a highly functioning Planning Commission, even though it appears from time to time that people don't realize that things change in our town as much as they could. That sort of the tagline for our strategic plan was at the intersection of progress and preservation for Nevada City. And nowhere is that more borne out than at the Planning Commission, where the decisions are made and that balance is created. So you do a tremendous amount of work. I completely agree with Doug. If I never have to read another EIR in my life, I'll be really happy. And that's why we have you. But a great amount of work. The commission has been transformed. It's productive. It's moving. So really essential. And it's another aspect, and I will be presenting at your next Planning Commission meeting, where I on the trail of neighborhoods and community leadership and how our citizens step up to make our city work. And I have some thoughts about that I will share with you. But thank you so much. It takes all of us to do this. And I think I speak for my colleagues. We're all really grateful that you guys are willing to do this so we don't have to. So thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
And so with that, we will receive and file that. And thank you for your appointments. And as I said, I'll see you at your next meeting. So. All right. So moving to item 7, consideration of an update on the Nevada City Street Bridge Replacement Project. I think, Sean, you got to kick it off, and then
Brian's going to join us. He'll share all the aspects of the bridge, and I will end it with the work we're trying to do with the businesses in the community for some offsets on the impacts.
Good evening. So we're just going to provide an update for the bridge and answer any questions, but we've had lots of discussion about the bridge as we were leading up to getting the contract issued, awarding the contract. So the intent today is just to provide the current status and talk about the schedule and any impacts the project has to the city. So the contractor began work on March 4th and did demolition, shoring. The shoring was necessary because, as you can see now, they're in the creek bottom doing the footings. And then there's some utility relocations, and we didn't start work in the creek until June 1st. That was the allowed date with our environmental permits. And we have to be out of the creek by October 1st. We could potentially apply for an extension, but we're not planning to at this point. And so the biologists spent quite a bit of time monitoring and clearing the work zone before the work began in the creek. And that involved the clear water diversion to take the clean creek water from above the site through the site and then discharge it below the site. And there's huge amount of monitoring requirements for those permits. So water quality had to be monitored every 4 hours at a minimum, and we've got all those reports. And if there's an exceedance of the thresholds that are in the permit, you have to report that. And we didn't have any exceedances.
Excuse me, exceedances of what?
Turbidity, pH, and then any other potential pollutants that are visible, like a sheen on the water. So when we were finished with the Clearwater diversion, we started dewatering for the foundations, and we did see a sheen on the water in one area, but it wasn't discharged to the creek. It was discharged off-site. We put it in water trucks and trucked it off-site. Same with soils, that's being monitored. Like the soils had to be tested, and some lead and naturally occurring minerals was found that it's being characterized where it has to go. I think it'll have to go to a landfill in Kettle City or Nevada.
Meaning you found arsenic or something of that?
Yeah. Some of it's naturally occurring, but it's also because of all the years of mining in this area. So that's just an example of the monitoring that's being done, and by Department of Fish and Wildlife or Water Resources Control Board. And so those types of monitoring reports are pretty lengthy, but they could be made available to anyone that wants to see them. And so there's, in terms of the current status, there was some delay with getting the Clearwater diversion in place. It was just kind of challenging to get the creek channelized and into the pipes. And then some challenges with soil conditions, because previous to starting the project, we drilled from the street above, and you could only reach so far and drill, and they weren't able to get into the creek bottom to drill because the creek was flowing. So I'm talking about the pre-project, pre-design drilling. We're only able to see what we could from within 10 feet or so of the wall, like what we could reach out and get with the drill. So the soils out in the middle of the area where the foundations are a little bit different, which made it necessary to do full-length casings for these cast-in drilled hole foundations. So that added about a week and a half to the schedule, and the creek diversion took an extra week, but we're trying to make up that time. They're working Saturdays and overtime, trying to make up that time. But it's looking like the scheduled completion of November 1st is being pushed a little bit. Some of that's due to weather also. So we still think we can have the bridge open by mid-November. That's the current status. And we're working with the contractor to do what we can to make up anything on the schedule. But the overall project duration is 200 working days. So there's some work that can be done after that bridge opening, like utility hangers under the bridge and some of the pedestrian railing. There's some work that will occur after the bridge is open to traffic, but our goal is to get the bridge open to traffic and minimize impacts on the community with the detour, the parking, the noise, everything, So, yeah, we just wanted to provide an update, and we've got some photos we can share also, but.
Sure, yeah, we can pull those up. As the council knows, but maybe people in the community might not, Bill Falcone, our former city engineer, now engineer emeritus, is working for the engineering firm doing on-site work. If you ever see him down there, it's usually going to be at like 7 in the morning because that's when they do briefing. So he's a familiar face, and Brian's down there quite a bit. Every time I come into work at 7:45, he's walking down the street to there. So we do appreciate the opportunity for the community to give us feedback on it. I think Mr. Coulter was noting earlier that you can see this thing from multiple angles, and I think that's a great thing. That if we're missing the boat on something, we want to hear about it. We're certainly not going to be perfect, but there's that team in place for that. A couple of things that we'll be exploring, well, actually implementing pretty quickly here is I've met with most of the business owners in the area, Stonehouse, Creekside, Rainbow Rocket, the person that came to the last meeting who's a resident above Creekside there in the building. Cornerstone Realty is in the audience, I think. She's still here. Good evening. We've been really focused on trying to free up as much parking as is possible in that intersection there because it's limited parking to start with. As the work is settling down, there's less need for equipment to be coming in and out of there, so you'll see less of that. And the contractors really should be on the other side in the Nevada Street parking lot unless they're loading or unloading big tractors. So I'm quite certain the folks right there across the way will continue to report those challenges to me. We'll be partnering with the local businesses to put up signage, temporary signage, like big banners along the railing of the exit at Broad Street. We'll put it on the Broad Street Bridge, something to the effect of, shops open during construction. If at all possible, we'll have the logos of Creekside and Cornerstone and others that may want that. We'll be doing temporary parking signage that indicates the same kind of thing, just, trying to make sure that folks are aware that these shops are and locations are open. We've been working with the chamber to try to get opportunities for especially Rainbow Rocket as a retail establishment to have an alternate opportunity. So if you were here yesterday, you would have saw Amanda out there from Rainbow Rocket at a booth, and we're getting flyers at the farmers market. They're full, which is great. So they have no opportunity to get anybody out there, at least for the next month or so, but you'll see flyers for Creekside and for Rainbow Rocket out there announcing that. We have a couple other things in the works to try to work directly with the businesses for those impacts. Really, it's a 3-minute walk from City Hall. So from almost anywhere in our historic downtown. I know it feels like it's the other side of the Grand Canyon sometimes because you have to walk across the other side of the highway, but for anybody walking at home or watching at home, when you get off the highway, turn right and experience the things that are over there. And if you have any ideas of how we could demonstrate that those businesses remain open and any opportunities to support them, we'd love to hear them. I'm sure they would as well. And the city's committed to working on that. And that is all I have for you. I'm sure you'll have some questions, and Brian does have some pictures.
So let's go ahead and take public comment on this first. So we're going to open public comment on this. Matthew, I think you're up and ready to go.
Thank you, Matthew Coulter, Grass Valley. On the way up here, I stopped and just grabbed a little bit of dust off the ground. And the situation being is that it is so fine that it just spreads everywhere. They're driving through it repeatedly, making it more fine. This is toxic stuff. This is the stuff we have to send out of state to store it. Yet we're putting it in the air for everyone to breathe. Then we're shoving it down the creek for all the creatures in the creek to consume. Then we're putting it into Wildwood and beyond into the San Francisco Bay. It's super, super nasty. Now, talk about what they're putting in the creek. Look at their white pipes that are tucked in the bushes on this side of the creek. And there's the stuff that's coming out of those and the fines. They have it tucked in the bushes like no one's going to see it. They can't discharge that fine, this stuff turned into sludge into Deer Creek, which is what they're doing. Now, for some reason, the city, I've talked to Sean, I've talked to Brian multiple times, they say, take it to the state. Well, that's where I have to take it to. But before I took it to the state, I wanted to bring it to the city council, to the people that represent Nevada City. Now, if your guys' recommendation is to take it to the state, then that's great. But all I'm asking for is basic cleanup of stuff that the public has to move across. And if you go to the Nevada Street side of the project, it's even worse. And those guys are driving equipment through it. I have videos, stills, repeatedly, huge clouds of dust. These are air quality violations. I've already talked to Air Quality North about it. Okay? Something has to be done. This is an ongoing project. It's a big project. And I think you guys got in over your heads. I don't think you really knew what you were digging in. It's the lowest part of town. That's where everything settles from all the 200 years of mining. It all goes there, right? Down to the creek. And then they just built some walls and started backfilling it. It made a bridge. It made bridges. What would they backfill it with? Waste. So that's what they're digging in. That's what they're spreading everywhere through town. And I can't believe the woman that has the real estate place isn't dead of cancer yet, because she's just sucking it up. Everything is coated in it. And as I go through the parking lot, in a few seconds left, I look at their cars of their workers. A bunch of their tags are expired. So that kind of tells me that, you know, they're cutting corners on a lot of different levels. If they can't even register and insure their vehicles, personal vehicles, or driving to work from wherever they're coming from, to come here and take this $8 million and then go away, you know, we're suffering the consequences, long-term health consequences.
Thank you, Matthew. Other comments on this topic? All right, we'll bring it back to the council.
Did you have pictures you wanted to show?
You want to see pictures?
Yeah, I like pictures.
Okay, let's see pictures.
Okay, this is the shoring. There's soldier piles at the back. That's like a 20-foot wall at the back with tiebacks. And then this closer shoring is sheet pile. And you can go to the next one. And so the shoring enables us to get down to where foundations are, which is where they're drilling the 36-inch diameter piles. And there's 7 more that haven't been done, but we've done 21 of them already. So they're closing in on.
And that'll be the
finishing
bridge
that.
foundation.
Yeah, those are these long piles. Some of them are 21 feet long and tied in with steel to the reinforcement of the footing. And they'll pour the first footing on Saturday. So this is below groundwater. So that's being dewatered into a Baker tank, which it's kind of under the Broad Street Bridge, but the water settles in that Baker tank and then it discharges. But we're monitoring that discharge to make sure that by the time it leaves the job site, which is at the lower part of Broad Street, that we don't have any discharge of any turbid water. So that's being monitored all the time. So there's groundwater, and then there's the dewatering that's being done in the construction zone, but it's all being handled with either trucking offsite or using that Baker tank. You can go to the next one. This is just another shot of the foundation. So after this is completed, we've kind of got to a point where there's less unknowns because we're out of the ground and we're starting to come up. And so now we're going to start forming footings and walls, and the schedule's more predictable because it's all based on form, pour, strip, and wait for your curing time. So that's why I think we're going to be able to make up the schedule. So go ahead. This is a tie-back wall, a soil nail wall. Rather than excavate this huge excavation back, it was cut vertical. And as they cut vertical, they tie back into the soil with soil nails. You can go to the next one. This is just another shot of what's occurring now with the foundation work. Go ahead. So it gets crowded in the work area. We do have dust in the work area that needs to be managed. We don't want dust suspended in the air or leaving the job site in any way. There's also track off requirements for any vehicles leaving the job site. We don't want them tracking off mud or anything or any dirt onto the roadways. So that's something that we just need to manage, and we can always do more in that regard, managing dust and track off. And but in the work zone, there's just always going to be the debris that's associated with the work. You can go to the next one. And then this is just a larger shot showing the creek diversion pipes that pipe the clean water through the site, which will remain in place till October 1st. We had a bird that actually formed a nest right in the middle of the job site in April and May, and it finished nesting just before we started working in the creek zone, and then it built another nest it built a second nest and had 3 more chicks hatched from the second nest. So yeah, the birds have been active.
Did we relocate that bird? Didn't we relocate the nest at one point?
After they finished
Okay.
completely.
You have to let it go through the cycle.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. Does that complete your pictures?
Yeah.
Okay. Comments, thoughts, comments?
Are we doing any work at night?
No.
Thanks. That was a concern, I know, of some people. At one point, we were hoping that the Stonehouse parking lot would be available to ease some of the parking difficulties. How has that gone?
Unless Brian has talked to the owner, Mr. Rowe, since the last time we spoke with him, he's still struggling with his engaged contractor and maybe selecting a different contractor to get to the point of doing the paving work. We've met on site and here and, expressed our concerns about making sure that the job is done right as far as, grading and leveling and compaction, because the groundwork that was done there was done before the rains of the winter. So there'll be some minor work that needs to be done before they put the asphalt in. As soon as it is done, it becomes available as non-exclusive public parking for the next 7 years. So we hope very much that they'll move forward with that, but at this point, it's under the owner's control.
I see. I know that we had hoped that it would be used as a staging area, and that would relieve some of the parking problems, but that has not happened, right?
We had contemplated having it as a staging area, but it's not really a good location because they'd have to drive through to the back, and so it just would be ineffective. So the existing Nevada Street lot, the parts of it that are still there, are really the principal staging area for the site. Although you will see they come in for the equipment sometimes that needs to be from the Broad Street side. They'll take those parking spots just basically directly across from Creekside at Broad Street there. But yeah, all the heavy equipment you see now is in in what was once the creek, and the crane stays until the bridge is done. Correct?
Mm-hmm.
And I think people are unaware that about a third of the Nevada Street lot is available for parking when it isn't full up with contractors parking there. I know on Sundays, I'm recommending the people at Trinity Church park there because there's 18 spaces there.
and you can walk directly from there, still direct to Broad Street. You don't have to go through the construction zone. That path is still there. So the Nevada Street lot is, you know, if you're coming on a Saturday, is a 2-minute walk from Farmers Market.
Yes, very handy. Thank you. Did they find any gold? Just curious.
We haven't had time to look for gold.
You see his new car?
Is that good?
That's it. Thanks.
Councilmember? Sure.
I heard from someone who was concerned, I guess there's a pedestrian walkway for people to get to their houses and stuff. And the suggestion was made to me that at night, if there could be some lights installed, because people just don't feel safe on it. They don't have like situational awareness so much when it's dark there. That was one comment that came to me. It sounded like you addressed some of Mr. Coulter's environmental concerns. Do either one of you have anything to add in that area about what's happening environmentally as this project goes on?
Do you want to describe any more detail about how you're discharging into native or into vegetation before it re-enters?
Yeah, we monitor the zone where the job site ends and the creek begins. That's where our monitoring point is. So inside the work zone, there is groundwater, there's turbid water that's being filtered and put through our tank and managed, but at the point where we monitor it, which is where it leaves the job site to the creek, that we're subject to all kinds of requirements, and we have to monitor that very closely and report any exceedances to the state. So we'll continue monitoring that. And then I think we do need to do a better job of making sure there's not track off or any dust leaving the site.
That's for sure.
Yeah, we also can't do that either. Our permits don't allow for that, so.
So what do we do about that? It's something we need to do, but we can't do it?
No, we just need to do more of it.
I got you.
Yeah, there's dust, there's dirt and dust and mud in the site.
Yeah.
It can't leave the site.
Right.
So that can be managed with sweeping, watering, collecting it, on a regular basis.
Okay. Well, that sounds sensible. And Sean, I'm thankful that we're talking to the businesses that have been affected. And I like that like Rainbow Rocket getting a spot at Summer Nights, et cetera. Did they bring up any ideas that we weren't able to help them with? Did they have ideas that we're just not able to provide, or?
I don't think they had anything that was legitimate. Obviously, they would love to, have some compensation to offset the impacts and things like that. And I understand that. At the same time, not something that we can do. No, I think everyone that we've talked to, and we certainly haven't talked to everyone. And I'm sure there'll be more voices. If you're hearing my voice and you disagree with what I said, then call me tomorrow or email me tonight, because we'd love to engage folks with this. One of the things that is concerning to some, maybe not others, but certainly Creekside, is as they come into Thanksgiving, they get large party bookings that they don't have this time of year. And so the concern would be if our schedule pushes us past that time, how could they accommodate that? And it doesn't make it perfect for them, but we have contingency plans. Should that happen, they would notify us when they're going to have those large parties, and we would determine a location either in the commercial street lot or at the court parking or another location that we could say this is going to be, assigned parking for that event, and then we'd have a path of travel for them to be able to walk to. Not ideal, but it would mean that they don't have to turn away the 60, people that would be booking their, the patio before it gets too bad of weather. That was the only thing that we didn't have an instant solution for, but we do have one now that we could put in place. Hopefully we don't need to. Right. Hopefully we stay on track. The bridge is open for, for travel, in early November, and the project's complete, by Thanksgiving.
Were they happy with that idea, solution?
Bo, the owner, is a very kind and gracious man, so I think he would have been nice to me either way, but I think both him and Lydia, who's his director of operations now, she moved over from the Stone House, actually, so very familiar with that intersection in general. Lydia's the one that is heading up the design of the banners, which will be way better than me trying to do it. We're grateful for their partnership and being willing to work with us on it.
Yeah. My very first job was washing dishes in that location, and that location brings with it very specific challenges sometimes of the year, and we made up a new one for them. So anything we can do, really appreciate. Thanks, Brian. Thanks, Sean.
First, I'd like to sort of commend you, Sean, on addressing the concerns of the public and the businesses over there. I think you did that very proactively. You actually told me a few more things that you were doing, like the signs in Katrina's. Could you tell me a little bit? I forgot what it is, so.
So not I don't think we've inked the deal yet, but the condition, we're good. The chief said we're good. So, part of our vacant storefronts ordinance, we do inspections of vacant facilities, and they have to maintain them in a certain condition. And Las Catarinas, a couple doors down here on Broad Street, has been vacant for a very long time. And they are in the program, and they do pay their fees. One of the things we've done is ask them to allow us to place information about the bridge project itself, as well as information about the impacted stores in the window there. So, nice panels on easels that will say, this is my concept. It could be not what they do, so don't hold me to it, but it would have Creekside's menu and their hours of operation, and it'd have Rainbow Rocket information, and it'd have, Cornerstone Realty's, information and things like that, and say this, we're open during construction, we're a brief 3-minute, 5-minute walk down the road here, and then information about the bridge and a QR code to the chamber and to the city. Just another way to tie people when they're in the kind of the core of the historic district to, that part of town is still open.
Okay, and then what are we doing to, I think there was some concern about notification, and I know we are doing notification, but could you tell us and the public a little bit how that process goes and how we're notifying the businesses and the residents over there of, what's going on day to day or month to month?
So at this point, it's, we did the initial offering, we did mailings, we did door to door, and one of Evan started with us on January 3rd or something like that, and one of his first things was to walk the town and hand out flyers, and I would say that, and we put it in newsletters that it was coming, and newsletters that it happened. We did full closure in March, but clearly there's some people that said they didn't get the word, and that's that's on us. So there's we can learn from that, but we can't unring the clock there. I appreciate the council asking for this item to come back. I appreciate the community giving additional input. So we're about halfway in. We're 3.5, almost 4 months into it. We got about 3.5, 4 months left on the entire project. So we still have plenty of opportunity to mitigate as many impacts as we can for those folks, short of having the bridge open. I would say we need to do better at this for the next project, and it is what it is.
That's pretty thorough though, I guess people can still miss, there's still people who don't know that there's an election going on and things like that, but I appreciate that. I just wanted to understand how thorough we were, and it sounds like we're doing a good job, even though we can always do better.
Yes, and those are the traditional communications pathways. So the lessons that we'll learn will be going back to the people that didn't get them and finding out what way we could have communicated to them, and then next time around we'll use those avenues.
Thanks so much.
And there is a next time around coming up, right? The Broad Street.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Coulter, I think the project will need to be able to prove that it's doing the things it says it's doing when you contact the state.
I'd like to hang out and show you the pictures that I have that are different from the pictures you have.
Mr. Coulter, please. I too share your concerns about the air quality. The dust control is an issue, particularly in the heat. The cloud of dust is visible from some distance, the debris landing. And I would also say that the equipment tracking out of the creek is not clean. That stuff is rolling up on the road. And so there are some standards that are required to be met around dust control and around water quality. And though I have my concerns, I have no way of technically evaluating the compliance with those other than what I see. But what will happen is when someone like Mr. Coulter is concerned enough to contact the state and the state responds, and then we'll find out whether it's really happening or not. So I'm going to assume that you are doing your job and that Bill Falcone is doing their job and that the standards are all being met because I don't have any evidence to the contrary. But when I think you've been put on due notice, that it's likely that the state may be requested to visit the site and determine the effectiveness of those controls. And in which case we would all face some difficulties were they not being met. So I have that concern. I do believe that dust control is an issue, just from my observation. It's an amazing project. It's a huge project. It's a complicated project. Yes, it's a big project for our city. I believe we're capable of doing it. But I think, in projects of this nature, it's all about compliance and it's all about not exceeding and being super diligent on your reporting when it is, because it can happen like that. And we are dealing with, as has been noted, significant old mining debris. We know that mercury is present, cyanide is present, arsenic is present in all of our work that we do in our towns as a legacy of the extraction history. So that's my concern. In listening to Mr. Coulter, I think I would expect that I would behave as though I was going to receive visits from air quality control, water control, and everybody else. So that's my perspective on it. But I think it's a great project. It's moving. It's timely. I think the other thing I wanted to add, I did learn that one of the community complaints is that the construction was starting early, and we later found that was Caltrans who's doing paving and working on the ADA access at night along the bridges. What was the work that was being heard and disrupting the tenants, and not this project. So I think that's an important distinction to make. So,
Mayor, if I may, 100% Caltrans doesn't follow our rules. But we did find that, thanks to the help of the tenant that lives upstairs at Creekside, that there's some activities that are occurring that are allowed. So they're not supposed to be doing construction activities before that briefing at 7 in the morning. But they can drive in and they can, they're not doing tractor work and things like that. But as you can imagine, some of these trucks that they're driving in on are a little bit louder. Some of them have, when you open the doors, close the doors, it sounds like slamming. It sounds like a construction zone, even if it's not a construction zone. So, she was gracious enough to take some film of that. And so we could give that feedback to the contractors, like, okay, before this time, this is what we need. And then the other thing I would say is I really appreciate the council's feedback. I appreciate Mr. Coulter's feedback. The one thing we're going to take to heart everything that we heard here. We'll, resolve it to writing, work with the contractor, because to me, all projects should assume that Air Quality Management District and the Water Board and everybody and their brother is going to come and evaluate you at some point, and you should always desire to be above boards, but you could check all the boxes and not get in trouble with them and still have conditions that the community doesn't like. So, we want to address them anyway. So to the point of the fines and the dusts and the tracking off and the water quality, we'll look at all of that, and we'll, if you would like, we'll look to bring back another report in about 2 months, which will be the halfway point of the rest of the project.
I think that'd be appropriate. The other thing I wanted to add, and this is more as much a question or a thought, but I would believe that if Mr. Coulter had something he wanted to submit, it would work through the same process as somebody submitting a written document, and then it would go to the clerk and you would distribute it to us for review. And I think that that's how it would work. Mr. Coulter, did you hear that?
I did.
Thank you. Okay.
Absolutely.
So this is a receive and file, and I think we're good. Thank you so much for the presentation. It's quite a project, and I think the one failure that we've had is not putting up bleachers and selling seats. It's a very popular viewing
It is.
point. I spent a fair amount of time there myself. Thank you very much.
Brian's going to stay with us for the next one.
Okay, we're going to move to consideration, item 8, consideration of transmitting city offered partnership opportunities for the Judicial Council of California to select 631 Coyote Street, current USDA National Forest Service site, as the site of the relocation of the Nevada City Courthouse.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to, he didn't leave yet. Chair of the, I think his third time as chair of the Courthouse Ad Hoc Committee, Paul Matson's with us this evening. On March 21st of this year, the Judicial Council of California announced that it was down to 3 sites for the new Nevada City Courthouse relocation, which is the current U.S. Forest Service site, what's referred to as the Melopello Hirschman area. Melopello referring to the small triangle at the corner of Highway 49 and Cement Hill, and then the Hirschman's area being the city-owned property behind it, and then the parcels at the corner of Highway 49 and Coyote, which is kind of a misnomer. It's really the south side of Highway 49 between East Broad and Coyote. So that swath of residential properties there. Those were the finalist properties. They are doing their due diligence to evaluate those properties from a technical perspective. They have an architectural firm working on that now. They did just schedule the return of the project advisory group. So this is timely so that we could bring back to them the community's input, the council's input. And on May 22nd, you did adopt the ad hoc committee's recommendation, which is Chair Paul Matson and Councilmember Fleming did a great job with a very entertaining group of community members filling the council chambers and sharing a lot of thoughts about the 3 sites. It was kind of all in 2 different camps to start with, but coalesced into one uniform, I would say almost universally shared belief that the Forest Service site was really the only site that should be supported from the city and Nevada City's perspective. And you did adopt that recommendation, as well as give us the go-ahead to bring back to you a refined list of things that would be incentives to the JCC to select that site. So they have expressed many times that they would like to partner with the local agencies for the courthouse and its future. And so this is our recommendations for that offer of partnership. There certainly could be more. Your action tonight would be to select from these, could be all of them, or you could add if you wanted to as well. And I would bring that to the project advisory group, the PAG, at their meeting coming up at the end of August, both that offer as well as the recommendation from the city that it only be at the Forest Service site. So the list of items largely revolve around technical ways to help them speed up or improve their project. But the first is for the city to provide initial design and cost estimates for final design and installation of an upgrade of the existing city sewer line that serves the property. The courthouse will certainly need a bigger line than is, if it goes there, than is in Coyote today. Because we're a small city and we control the streets and the infrastructure, we're like one of the cheapest places on the planet to be able to replace or upsize a sewer line. We're not suggesting that we do that work at this point, but do the initial design work so that they would know what needed to be done. I think we would do that, for others that might consider, a very large project on that corner as well. Then the next item is that facility will necessitate an additional water need. And that would come in the form of a new 1.5 million gallon storage tank up gradient from the site, much like you see behind the Rood Center or other behind Fire Station 5 on Province Mine Road, or other water tanks in the area. That system would not just be beneficial to the court, but also beneficial to the rest of the city, both in capacity and pressure for the parts of town where, and with the exception of one relatively new private developer installed lift or pressure system for water, or a gravity dependent system, which is crazy because we're a city of hills, many more than 7, but the water all runs downhill to get to your house from those tanks. So what we would propose is that, again, we would do initial design and cost estimates for that system, and then we would be seeking grant funding, add that to our CIP project list, and be seeking grant funding for that. Ultimately, it'd be up to the courts to to negotiate with us on the cost of installing it. But if we can get a grant to put it in there before the courthouse goes in, that's just good for everybody as far as fire flows go. Another item that ties to that would be for the city to seek to acquire the property to the north of the Forest Service site, which is 731 Coyote Street. That is the interceding property between the existing Forest Service site and our soon-to-be awarded Sugarloaf Trail. There is easements across both properties, and so it is also a natural location for an expanded parking lot for the Sugarloaf Trail. So there would definitely be synergy in, it could be where the water tanks go, it could be where the parking goes for the trailhead. It can expand the surface that we could plausibly do the trail on, and Pines to Mines design and discussions are fully underway, and that will terminate in the same general area. And so if we don't have parking for the folks that want to access that someday, they'll park wherever they want. We know that. So this could address many, many things that would be beneficial to the community. And we happen to know the owner of the property, also a large developer, landowner in town in general. The next thing would be for the city to work with Variable Land Trust, who is our existing partner for the Sugarloaf Trail. Again, that because they hold the easement across that that property already for recreation purposes. We would connect the JCC planning process for the site proactively for access, circulation, and mobility design relative to the multimodal corridor. Everyone's talking about roundabouts on Highway 49. That's the term, multimodal corridor, right? How do pedestrians cross the highway? How do bicycles navigate the intersections? That is underway. The design is underway anyway. So connecting for what will be that 6-year project down the road of how that would interface. We're saying that the city would provide a conceptual design of required upgrades to the right-of-way infrastructure on Coyote Street adjacent to the site. So not build them, but it's going to have to look a little different than it does today, which is primarily residential folks coming down off the backside of the hill there that come out at the Forest Service. The only other folks that use it are the Forest Service people and the fire station that's right there. Everything else is basically residential coming down the hill. It'll look very different if the courthouse is there. Regardless of what we do with the multimodal portion, Coyote Street itself will need to change. This is a wordy one, but the city to work with the county of Nevada to find alignment of interest for the site, including its proximity to county assets, infrastructure, and the needs for sheriff for in-custody transportation. So I can boil that down for you. The county has a cool trail that comes from the Rood Center all the way to their shop at the corner of North Bloomfield at the stoplight there. Our trail will connect to the other side, and that's right on the corner of the Forest Service property where the courthouse will go. So we'll be working with the county and Caltrans and other interested parties to make sure that all of that will eventually connect in this, wonderful new courthouse, assuming, well, they are going to put it there because we're going to tell them, right? And then the other part is the sheriff has to do in custody transports from Wayne Brown there. This is actually a little bit closer and means they don't have to come through the downtown anymore. They just go right in the corridor.
Who lives on Main Street?
But the sheriff, I'm sure, will have unique considerations, interests, and the like. And when we're talking about changing road configurations, the multimodal corridor, and how they'll do that in custody transportation, it would be much better to consider that before we change the pavement on the road. So just my thought. The next piece is that the city work with Nevada County Transit Service for project planning for a bus stop at the site that matches the JCC county, city, and community members' needs for transportation. Building a bus stop, very easy. Planning for the bus to actually go to the bus stop, a little bit more complicated. And they're very good at their job in doing that, but the sooner we can get them, knowing that that's a real possibility, is the more that it can be planned for implementation. And then the last piece is that we would develop a point-to-point transportation plan, allowing the use of parking at the current courthouse location in the historic downtown to provide a shuttle between the downtown, the new courthouse, the Eric W. Rood Administrative Center, essentially as a point-to-point-to-point that allows people at the Rood Center to get to the downtown to our shops and restaurants. It allows people at the courthouse to do the same. And once they're here to eat their lunch, to get back to the Rood Center or back to the courthouse. I'm not saying we buy the buses and start the program today. I'm just saying that we would design a conceptual design of the system, because it would be good for the court, it'd be good for the city, and I believe it'd be good for the county, and I'm sure they would love to be part of that process. So that is our list of considerations. I did put some conceptual costs in there for the initial part, with the exception of the acquisition of the property. Much of that comes in the cost of staff time. Now, there is only one Brian, so if we use his time to do some of this work, that means that there's other work that he's not doing, so that we may use consultants instead of that. That they would be more expensive, but there's only one of him. The acquisition of the property, that's just an estimate of the property's value. I'm not saying that we would expend that. Any of these items, if we were to use consultants or to buy anything or to do anything, would come back to the council for approval. But what we would be asking is your direction for me to transmit whichever items you would like to the JCC through the PAG. And then we will include the relevant items in its own project, its own sheet in our capital improvement program. And if you have questions about why 1.5 million gallons of water or anything technical, that's why Brian stayed where he's sitting.
Great. Thank you, Sean. We will open this to public comment. Any public comment? Paul, you got anything back there? Or Matthew's going to go? I think Matthew's going to go. Please, let's work it out.
Matthew Golder, Grass Valley. I don't like the location, but obviously it's going to be there, and that's what everyone's decided on. I mean, just last night at the Wednesday night thing, listening on the scanner, there was a 3-car crash at that location. There was another crash down the street. There's been somebody hit walking across 49. And then I go to the Caltrans meetings and stuff, and they're like, oh, we're going to do traffic calming. We're going to put in all these roundabouts. But then a week later, they raise the speed limit in front of the Rood Center. So it makes no sense whatsoever to deal with Caltrans. I suggest AB 43, so we can adjust the speed limits in municipalities so that they fit the fact that we have horse roads that are slightly wider now than they used to be, maybe in some places, but
barely.
It's a scary spot as a pedestrian, and people don't want to go to Bloomfield to cross. They want to walk up Orchard and cross over to the Rood to get to the library. They don't want to go to Bloomfield, and I almost got hit by a county worker coming off a Broad doing a left-hand turn towards the Rood Center. She almost got me. And she saw me at the last second. I was in the crosswalk. She was in the crosswalk looking at me as she's driving by. And she realized what she had done, but it doesn't matter. I would have been squished. So that whole zone is super, super dangerous. And I don't know what they can do to really make it better. And I just don't think by putting in hundreds of more people per day in that area, it's going to become any better at all. In fact, it'll be worse. And then the fire department, like, sit there on the corner and watch them try to get out. They have to turn on their lights. There's just to push themselves out. No one will even let them out, even when they have their lights on. It's crazy what's going on because it's so close to the intersection at 20, 49. And then you got that other intersection. Then you got Bloomfield. I understand they're going to want to do all these improvements. But like I suggested to the Board of Soups, if they're going to do this stuff, they need to take into consideration the entire corridor and deal with where the Forest Service is going to put their new building and deal with it from that point all the way to 4920 Junction. Not this piecemeal thing that's going on that everyone has their own fiefdom and we're going to do it our way in this section. But if you leave that section, you got to negotiate someone else's section that no one has done anything to. Thank you.
Thank you, Matthew.
Joanne Brown, Nevada City. I'm a member of the Greater Cement Hill Neighborhood Association. And I would like to second his comments. I have often walked my dog down Cement Hill through the Rood Center property and then tried to cross 49, and it's a thrill, even with the signal. I was asked to come to you this evening to just listen in and get a sense of what everyone's thinking, and also to ask the question, not pointing fingers or anything, just question, why are you thinking that we need incentives if the Forest Service land is in fact coming out as #1 choice of the available properties? Thank you.
Thank you.
Good question.
Great question.
Hello, everybody.
Hello, Paul.
Good to see you. I have been involved in this for a long time, and had always hoped that the new facility would be built on the north side of Nevada City, because that is the one place where it could really benefit our business community. I think there's great access there. I fully support the use of the Forest Service site for this function, and it's really a huge investment in our community. So thank you very much. And by the way, that bird is a Western dipper.
Yeah, that's it.
And it's the only bird I've ever known that can actually walk on the bottom of the creek.
It's a pretty rare bird.
It's pretty unusual, yeah. So the fact that it feels comfortable living there during all of this construction, I think is a testament to what a great job the city's doing. So thank you very much.
Other comments? I will bring it back to the council.
So I did a back of the envelope calculation and of your estimated costs, anywhere between 300,000 and 550,000.
Including the land.
Including the land. Where are we going to get that?
So the land acquisition would, be something that we're saying that we would explore. We're not saying you're not committing to buying that land, but certainly with that, if you provided that direction and I transmit that to the courts and it's well received, I will work with the property owner to see, if there's opportunities for, to find happy ways to, convey that land that would be beneficial to the property owner and to the city. He might have better, ideas than me. The rest of them are, yes, much less of a cost. And like I said, much of it could be done with staff, but we wouldn't be able to do all of it with staff time, because then we'd be taking away from the things that staff needs to do. So some of it would have to come in the form of consultant work. Also, some of it, all of it doesn't have to happen right now. In fact, much of it would, if not, other than that, making contact with the county and other stakeholders and, getting people in the room and talking about how we're going to do this, the actual expenditures would come after the state committed to the site and negotiated and said, yes, we're going to buy this location, which I would anticipate then you're talking about January of next year when we'd be starting to, look at these various things. Because remember, it's 2031 before the courthouse opens under well, I looked last week, so it may have changed, I'm not sure. But the dates are pretty far out. And this could be influenced by the highest and best use study that is coming out of the partnership between the city and the county for the current courthouse location, because what is best for that site might influence how we, deal with where the new site is, including how we, move, shuttle people around and the like. And if, with your indulgence, if you would like for me to answer the question, why do we need incentives?
Yeah, go ahead. I think it's better you than me.
It doesn't matter. Well, it doesn't matter if I think we need incentives. It matters if the community and the council thinks we need incentives. I mentioned earlier that the courts have, they constantly talk about, we want to have a partnership, and this is the incentives to me are that offer of partnership. We're not giving them land or, selling them land at below cost. We don't have many things that we could offer them in partnership. So the partnership comes in the form of these things that can make their project faster, less expensive, or more palatable to the global, to the community at large. And so if you don't like some of these things, we shouldn't include them. But I think it's always a good idea to make the project as good for Nevada City as possible. And many of these things, increase water flow, better sewer coverage, owning more property that has connectivity to the Sugarloaf Trail, and eventually Pines and Mines, parking for that. Connectivity to the existing trails at the Root Center. Essentially, all of these things are beneficial to the community in one way or another. And so if you think they're ripe for incentivizing the courts to do them, then we'll transmit it. If you don't, then that's fine as well. But that's the way I view it, is that the incentivization is making it as good a project for Nevada City as possible, not so much giving the courts free money or free work from staff. If you see it as free work from staff, then let's not offer that.
Well, I'm just concerned that the JCC is costing us money by moving the courthouse, and now we're going to be giving them, you didn't like that word, but I do think we will be giving them assets for nothing. I think we're being screwed at both ends.
I don't fundamentally disagree.
That's it.
Okay. Councilmember Klein.
Try again.
Oh, man.
I like the water storage tank is really interesting to me in terms of how much that would increase our capacity. I don't have the figures on hand, but that sounds like an enormous tank. And what's our current capacity, and by what percentage do you suppose putting this there would?
Is that like a 15% increase in our storage capacity?
It'd be about potentially a quarter of the storage if it was added. But
25.
That's about a quarter, isn't it?
Treated, yeah. For treated water, we have our untreated water supply too.
Yeah, that's really exciting to me, because we're going to see more droughts in our future, and increasing our capacity seems great. And sometimes those will be, I don't want to say man-made droughts, but corporation-made droughts.
What would make you think about that?
I don't know. I'm nuts. I'm a silly guy. That's all. Thanks, John.
So as far as incentivizing the JCC to do what we want them to do, I think we have to use every tool in our tool belt, because it's not a done deal. And I don't think that they will just default to this because it scored well. I think they're trying to decide between all three, and there's no real ranking of these three. Is that correct?
There was a ranking on the original scores, but now the scores coming back from the architectural firm will speak to, cost of bringing broadband or utilities, or how much grading might be done, or so it could dramatically impact the scoring.
Yeah. So, I just think we have to do what we need to do. And I think that, these are some good creative ways there's not much we can do, as you said. We don't have a lot of money, but, bang for your buck, $500,000 to, keep the community from, rioting. and keeping, this big, huge building from going in a place where we just can't have it, like, Hirschman's or in town, next to somebody's house. I think that, it could be money well spent. I mean, we're going to take a hit on this in many different ways, on the front end, on the back end, in the middle. But the alternative of having it go to one of those other two locations is just, it's untenable. It's just what I was going to say. We can't do that. So, it's a big chunk of money for a small city like ours. But I think in this case, this is something, that's really critical that we get to stay in the location that we've decided it should go in, and the community has really almost unanimously decided it should go in. So I don't think there's any question that we have to do everything we can. Besides buying them land, I think that has to be a little creative. And I think this is all reasonable. I don't know that this will matter to them. I mean, they have so much, relative to the $171 million that they're going to spend. They're like, yeah, take your little chump change, and we're going to go over to Hirschman's Pond, But, I appreciate the creative approach and all the little, I was surprised at all the things you could figure out to incentivize them with. So this is pretty good. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I think there's a couple important points here. This is like a conceptual offer. It is not, there would be many further approvals of this before we spent a dime on it. It's like putting an offer on the table. And I too believe it's warranted. There's a big section of town that would really appreciate the increase in water pressure that the tank would provide. If you get up in those areas, it's really kind of low. JCC is going to do what it wants. We need to do, I believe, everything to get them to move to this site. And even though we're offering a low level of incentives on this site, the cost of the other sites, which are basically have no infrastructure and utilities for that kind of building, would be much more costly. So it's hard to imagine them arriving at another conclusion, but they're the JCC and they do what they want and they have their own calculus. But I also think that the other portion of this that's really important is the existing courthouse. So I imagine as this goes forward and we look at this, that there's going to be a very complex negotiation that includes, and these incentives are just a small part of that. And actually, as Doug points out, in $161 million, it's kind of like, okay, thanks. But there's the old courthouse that has to be taken into account. There's a number of conversations ahead about what this ultimately looks like. And so this is, I think this shows willingness and a desire and a declaration to people that are looking at this underscores the decision our community has made about where we want this. And this is what we're saying, but who knows what's going to really happen. I think this is a great start, and I do appreciate that in the long arc of a negotiation like this, that putting something on the table now shows a willingness and a declared direction. So I would support that. And as I said, particularly to Councilmember Cici's legitimate concerns about what exactly the JCC is doing to us, is that these are not binding at this time. And we will have plenty of time to decide if they are or not.
And if they're mutually beneficial, in other words, if the JCC moves in that direction, they say, thank you, we love that offer, obviously we'd be negotiating it, but part of that discussion would be along with our county partners, would be with our assembly member and our state senator and our congressman of how we could secure earmarks and other, direct allocations, Caltrans, OES, other functions to bring these things to fruition to the benefit of the courts and not on the backs of our taxpayers. So that's always, as we move in that direction, we'll be seeking funds from other sources. So it's
going to be essential.
Yes.
Really, it really is. So, okay, let's see, we are looking for a motion for approval of this list.
I move that we approve this list as is. What else do I have to say? Anything else? No, that's it.
I'll second.
So we have a motion by Councilmember Fleming, a second by Vice Mayor Klein.
Nice.
It's, you know, it's sooner I'll get there.
You turn your sign around.
So I can see it instead of the audience.
Or put it on the opposite side of his.
Thanks, that's helpful. All in favor, let's do a roll call on this, if you would.
Councilmember Cece.
Yes.
Councilmember Fleming.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Klein.
Yes.
And Mayor,
Yes.
I almost said Mayor Fernandez. Mayor
Call me anything
Peterson.
but late for dinner. That's what we used to say in my house.
Motion carries 4-0.
Thank you. All right, and this brings us to concluding reports, and I will go to our city manager to open this segment of the agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's been hot. Unfortunately, we're going to get a little bit of a reprieve over the next 7 days or so, cool off quite a bit. Unfortunately, as it is starting to cool over the last 24 hours, fire just to the north of us in Butte County went from about 500 acres to a little over 71,000 acres. That was when I was checking earlier this afternoon, so it's probably significantly larger. So we have a water shortage due to, you know, some issues with PG&E in the upper watershed, and we have fires. You know, stay cool and be safe out there and conserve water where you can. Use it for drinking, not for, you know, the other things that aren't of direct benefit. But you know, water conservation is a big deal. If you haven't, for those at home, if you haven't seen why, watch our last meetings. Probably don't. Nobody likes to watch our meetings that much, but check us out on social media. We got some good storyboards, some simple information on there, things that folks could do very easily to reduce their water consumption, and an explanation of why we're asking them to do that. Our next meeting is until after the fair, because there's a 5th week in July, so hope to see everybody out there at the fair. And if you've never heard of a painted piano program, I would encourage anybody watching at home to attend or watch virtually our Public Arts Commission meeting on August 7th. That's all I have for you this evening, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Grayson. So I will go to council members' reports.
You know, I'll let you report out on the next best use meeting, but I went to a Pines to Minds meeting, which was really cool. You know, about 6 years ago, we wrote a grant for Sugarloaf, which there somehow took 5-6 years now to even get close to being started. But that's the part. There's a segment in the middle that's still not funded. They need about $2 million. We had members of the Forest Service, every nonprofit that deals with trails, from the equestrians to the mountain bikers and Bonk and all these other people. And it's really cool. They've been working on this for a long time. I'm sort of coming into it again late in the game, but you know, we're working with Shivati Pearl, who's Shivati Karki Pearl, who's now replacing Erica Seward in the Parks and Recs sort of department over there. But it's a really good group of people. I'm excited to help writing a grant there. And once, you know, I'm looking at this grant that talks about doing a project of national significance in, you know, forest land. And I think this qualifies as, you know, once we have this kind of trail that connects us to Truckee, you know, we still have to navigate the Harmony Ridge area a little bit. But I think it's going to be an iconic trail that, you know, there's going to have some accessibility sections where, you know, differently able people can use it. It's just really exciting. So that's what I've been working on.
Yeah, no, that's very exciting.
Yeah.
Thank you, Councilmember.
Only that I've been noticing that the performing arts community in this town has really poppin'. And if you haven't seen Honk yet, go.
Really? Okay.
I was moved by, I think, by the patriotic gesture of the president passing the baton to his vice president. But at the same time, I'd like to hush any chatter about our mayor's capacities. I think it's inappropriate to speculate on that. sharp as a tack, and I admire the man. So anyone even bringing that sort of thing up, I think it's totally inappropriate.
That's your best one yet, Adam. That's your best one.
Just because I forget to call you vice mayor, right?
Pretty much.
It's always been the first sign, you know.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Klein. That's great. Couple things. So yes, as Doug mentioned, we're on the highest best use for the courthouse meeting, which is a meeting. The county's undertaken a study with a, I can't remember the architectural firm's name.
Nelson.
To look at what the potential best use for the existing old courthouse is. I think it was a very good process. City Manager Grayson was with us as well, and it is a great multidisciplinary team with folks from the county, Stuart from the Chamber of Commerce, and the consultants led a very good process, beginning further out, scoping what possibilities, kind of what we could live with, what we couldn't, and it culminated with a top to bottom, well, I can't say bottom, but top to bottom tour of that entire building. And I couldn't say the bottom because apparently there is a basement there, but nobody knows how to get to it. And you can look at it down in there's places. So we did look at it. What a interesting tour. I think that one of the things we failed to discuss in there is the possibility of reusing the courthouse for horror movie sets. I think Saw 12 would go in there really well. It is a dank and dark building in places with jail cells and abandoned records rooms. I mean, it's quite a.
It's haunted.
It's haunted. It's just haunted. But it's great. It's a great conversation. It's going to take some time. This study is scheduled for a year. It's being co-chaired by myself and our District 1 Supervisor Heidi Hall, and it's a county project, but we're fully engaged and we're going to continue to look at that. And Councilmember Fleming and I are representatives, and it's going to be an interesting study as we look at where we might want to go with that, not just that building, but the entire complex area that's, because we have to look at not just that site, but the parking and the traffic flows and everything else, and the historic building. So quite interesting. We did have a great Fire Safety Advisory Committee, which is really humming along. I did want to say that in terms of the year of the neighborhood, if you're out summer nights, Evan and Camille are out there with the table. They now have neighborhood hats and patches. The folks in Sacramento are quite, the people who gave us the grant are quite pleased with our progress. They actually have been posting our activities, the declaration of the year of the neighborhood on their LinkedIn website. So we're right in line with what they're trying to do.
Nice.
And it's exciting, and you feel the liftoff. And I was going to say, in terms of that, Evan and Camille are doing a fantastic job from the bottom up. And if you haven't watched Evan with the neighbors, you really should. The guy's unflappable. I mean, he just rolls right into it. He's really good with it. But I'm start working with the top down, as I mentioned earlier. I'm going to be meeting with the Planning Commission and the Arts Commission to start to talk about the role of neighborhoods and connectivity, and also to support our citizen leadership, which is, here we are, but so are a lot of other people. But weaving this web of community is, we need to start calling that out and identifying that and building that string. So that's what we're up to. That concludes my thoughts, ideas, and et cetera. Looking for a motion to
Adjourn.
I move to adjourn. Second.
Moved by Councilmember Fleming, seconded by Councilmember Cece. I made it.
Thank you all.
It's that cognitive decline.
That was too good. That was too good.